What's up? What's up? What's up, Indies? How you doing? I'm Corrin. I'm here today for our November ground report. So just in case this is your first time, a ground report is where we kind of go through a mini training, right? A little mini lesson for about an hour. So generally, I don't answer questions during this session because I've got kind of a flow. I'm going to show you some things. But I usually do try to leave some time at the end for questions. So if there's something that I'm, going through and you're like, wait, I don't understand that, you can go ahead and ask that at the end and I will check through all of the chats then. But today we are talking about YouTube ads. So many of you want to know about YouTube ads. If you have not yet listened to the Creative Juice podcast, I think it was 2 episodes ago where we were talking about Google ads, YouTube ads. That could be good for you to check out. So you kind of have an overlay of what we're talking about, but these can go concurrently. Essentially, Google ads and YouTube ads, and formerly known as Google AdWords, are one and the same. YouTube ads is basically a placement within Google ads. So if you think about Fan Finder, for example, that is something that we put in the news feed, right? The video feed. And this is really what YouTube ads are. YouTube is not separate. Essentially, it's kind of like the video news feed of Google ads. So there are a lot of different placements in Google ads, and YouTube is one of them. So I'm going to go through, I basically created a dummy email address so that those of you who don't yet have a Google ads account, I can show you from the intro, because Google ads does something a little tricky when you first sign up for it, and it can be a little bit daunting when you first get in there. So I'm going to share my screen. Hope everyone is doing great. If you're going anywhere for Thanksgiving, be careful, all that. All right. So first thing you want to do, go to ads.google.com. Cryptic, huh? All right. So now even when you're signed into Google, it's still going to pull this up, right? It's for some reason, it just likes to make sure that it's going with the right person. Now, like I said, I set up a dummy email address so that I can kind of show you from inception what this looks like. If you already have a Google Ads account, you can sign in, but you can also press start now. It's basically the same thing. So you're going to see it's going to default to these that I already have access to, but that's because it's reading my Indiepreneur stuff. So I'm going to sign in, and this is the dummy email address that I've created. So obviously I don't have a Google Ads account, so I'm going to create a new one. So the reason why this gets a little bit confusing is that it has you start setting up a campaign right away. Like before you even have done anything else. Like, what do you want to do? And you're like, I want to get in and see what this is, right? So what you do in this, kind of setup is not really important. So there's a couple options here. You can switch to expert mode, right? And I think that's really kind of the easiest way to skip through this whole thing, because if you go to expert, then you can go to here, create an account without a campaign, right? And so what's great about that, it's going to obviously have you go through your various things and put in your information. I'm not really worried about that right now because that would just take time. But that's the best way to get into Google Ads. And that's one reason why I wanted to set up this dummy account to show you that process. Because otherwise you can really get in the weeds way too quick. Because it's going to be like, what's your links and what's your creative? And it'll have you set up an entire campaign when you're not even ready to do anything yet. So that is the initial portion. So when we get into the Google Ads dashboard, it's very deceiving because it looks like Facebook in a way, but it does not run, you don't navigate it the same way that you would navigate in Facebook to set things up. At first it will look that way. So obviously I'm going to set up a new campaign here. So one thing that I do want to, touch on is that, and I touched on this in the podcast as well, is that YouTube ads are, again, a very specific piece of Google Ads, and we do not consider it a one-to-one when you're talking about a fan finder on Facebook. YouTube ads don't do the same thing because it doesn't present your ad as something that maybe is native to whatever someone's interacting with, right? People are very used to seeing YouTube ads. Usually it's shown prior to something that they are interested in. So they know that it's an ad. They instantly are, jarred by that ad and they're ready to skip. It's something that they're, really used to navigating. So one thing that I just want to outline before we even dig into the rest of this, Google Ads is very, very powerful. YouTube ads can be powerful, but they are not going to work like a fan finder. They are not embedded in content that people are already interacting with, and then therefore it looks like it might be something their friend shared, right? This is very obviously an ad. So there are basically two objectives if you're running YouTube at the top, right? Which is essentially a video view campaign like what we're going to set up today. You're going to want to realize that, okay, really, this may get me some views, right? It's very unlikely that at a reasonable cost, you will be getting followers, YouTube channel visits. These are not things that we see many people have a lot of success with if they're just running an ad to a video that already exists on their channel. Your best bet when running YouTube ads or Google ads in general, but especially for video views, is going to be if you make some content that is thinking, okay, this is an ad. They're going to know it's an ad, and I need to make it obvious that I know it's an ad, and then have a real call to action, whether it's to go to your YouTube, whether it's to go to your website, things like that. Your general, music video that you would normally put on your YouTube channel is not going to be strong content for this. It's not going to bring you a lot in. If, all you care about is racking up thousands of views on a video, which obviously here at Impreneur, we don't really care much about that. But if that's important to you, we're here to help you anyway. This would be the way that you could do that. So just keep that in mind that, you're not going to be able to use the same content and expect the kinds of things that you would expect from a fan finder or a video view campaign on Facebook. So blurb out of the way, let's dig on into this. So there's a couple of things that you can, obviously it's giving you these options, right? And there are a number of options that you can put in here, but since you're going for video views, this is largely going to be, unless you are trying to direct people to a specific objective on your site, largely if you're just doing a video view type campaign, you're going to be looking for either product and brand consideration or brand awareness and reach. So obviously this is probably more what we're looking for, brand awareness, because this is geared more towards a very broad audience, which is also what we recommend for a fan finder on Facebook, is that you want a large pool of people so that as many, potential people see you as possible. Product and brand consideration is really more focused, right? And in the end, what we're doing here is not going to change much based on those two, but I would recommend brand awareness and reach. So you can see when we click that, it only offers us these two options. Now, if you wanted to change to website traffic, for example, you can see that other campaign types pop up here. Some people do like to use discovery ads. This is largely for people that you want to click on something, right? So if you're looking for video, the video content, this will do you just fine. Display ads are something that eventually, when we do decide to forge further down into Google Ads as a training, which is very complex, we'll get more into display ads. But for now, today, we're covering video. So now there's a couple of different placements here, right? The skippable in-stream, it's very similar. If you have gone through and set up a fan finder, you know that there are videos that are, long form in length, right? It's the recommended fan finder, 2.5+ minutes, something like that, so that we can gauge how people are actually, if people are actually interested in this and consuming it for any length of time. So that would be something where it's just a standard bumper. Now, when you're talking about skippable in-stream, right? In Facebook, you can have in-stream ads that are 15 seconds, right? Which for our purposes doesn't really, it doesn't really do what we're looking for unless it's a specific ad and you build it specifically for 15 seconds. So the same is true here. So you can go ahead and do, there's a few different options here. This non-skippable is that 15 seconds I was talking about. Skippable here is going to be at the top, right? And that's the one that they have to watch for 3 seconds or whatever, and then they can skip to the content they actually were trying to get to. So we're going to go with skippable in-stream because that is just the closest simulation to what a fan finder would be. Now, all of this looks very similar, right? Obviously, we've got the campaign name. We've got our bid strategies, which it has you kind of default to target CPM. When you go into different bidding strategies, you can change it. So you could potentially have options here. But that's one thing that you're going to want to look at your fan finder, your Facebook examples, campaigns that you've run before. Because then you kind of know what your CPM already is. Your CPM could be as low as $3. Your CPM could be as high as $15 to $18. Generally, the larger size an audience, the lower the CPM is. So if you are trying to reach a very specific audience, your CPM is going to be higher. And we're going to get more into the choices that you could make on these different things later. So obviously you can set your campaign total, right? I'll put $500 because I'm rich. Just kidding. You can put a start and end date, right? You can, these networks that are here, obviously you can, 4 different strategies. Again, different pieces of this are going to be enabled or disabled. So I kind of want to cover what they all are, even if you're not planning on, on running different ones, because I just want you to know what they are. So obviously there's YouTube search results. As it says, you can only use this for video discovery. So if you're wondering what video discovery is that little box at the top right. So if you go to YouTube on desktop, you'll see the video with all the comments below it, and you'll see the feed of suggested videos, right? And at the very top of that is another tile, and that'll be another video. Sometimes it's a banner looking ad, but that is a discovery ad. So that's where that would place if you wanted to run that kind of campaign. Otherwise, it's going to default to YouTube videos. Now, in the same way that Facebook does, Google has a display network. I think the Facebook setting is called Audience Network, and I think that they work really similarly in that your content will appear on other sites that are basically taking income from advertising. So I know, if I go to, the 9 things about Princess Diana we didn't know till after she died, and it's on some like tabloid site, and I get there and there's just like 1,000 ads, right? They didn't post that content because they really want you to, consume it as some intelligent thing. They know that it's clickbait, and they put 1,000 ads on that page, and they're getting paid for all those ads when there are impressions. So that's what Video Partners is for Audience Network and Display Network. Now, sometimes it can be done more tastefully, obviously, but just know that that's the display network. The thing about Google and both Facebook, actually, Facebook Audience Network and Google Display Network, is that what you may be dealing with at points is ad banner blindness, right? So think about when you go to a site, right, and you know that the thing that you want to read is in this column, and then just to the other side of it, I'm doing it in your perspective. Here's the page, here's the sidebar. You know that there are ads there, right? Because we're so used to that on all of the web pages we navigate. You know that there's a banner ad up here. And so we call it banner ad blindness, but really it's just ad blindness, right? That's why on some sites you'll see ads in the middle of their content because they're trying to not have it be at the sides because people don't really see it. So that said, Display Network, both on Google and the Audience Network on Facebook, will bring you cheaper results if you have that checked, but it also means that you may not be getting quality results. So I usually untick that box. That is something that is totally up to you, but that would be my recommendation. So then we get to locations. You guys know how this works. We pick the countries. I would recommend that you keep in green light warmth the same way that you do on Facebook. Your YouTube channel is less subject to a huge amount of data issues, just because of how with your Facebook page, you're building a lot of custom audiences off of engagement with that page, messages to that page, right? YouTube doesn't really have that same kind of targeting system, at least not yet. So it's not as precarious as it is on Facebook, but I still recommend that you keep to green light countries because, otherwise you might be dealing with a bunch of fake views, and it's hard enough to get good views without it all populating with this crap. So you can obviously set United States, or you can set in all the countries that you want to set here. Just for an example, I'll choose United States and Canada. Then again, you can set your languages, same as in Facebook. You could set it to just English if you're an English speaker, just French if you're, if you speak French, or set each of them, right? Or you could just leave it open. In theory, your countries are going to do a lot of that filtering for you. So I typically, both in Facebook and in Google, don't filter by languages because I feel like it's kind of redundant. If you are, a Latin rock artist in the United States, for example, you might want to make sure that you're including people who speak Spanish, right? So there are situations, we also have an indie that we've featured in the group, Caracol. She is from Montreal. So a lot of her music is in French and some of it is in English. So she may want to make sure that she is targeting people who speak French because that's not a native language of the United States, right? So she could put English and French in there if she wanted to. So there are situations where it makes sense, but in most cases, the countries will do it for you. All right, so let's get into content exclusions. Now, this is not something that is really, there's nothing like it on Facebook because Facebook tends to be a little bit more restrictive in their content, right? They don't have a lot of adult content, but YouTube does. They have a lot of adult content. They also have kids channels and things like that, right? So there's a lot of different filters on YouTube for kind of like the is it PG? Is it MA? Is it rated G? So that's very similar to what is happening here. So you might not want your stuff showing on paid adult content that's on Facebook or I'm on Google, excuse me. YouTube has a lot of videos where it's like, I would not want my kid to watch this, right? I don't have kids, but I'm saying if you had a kid, you wouldn't want them to watch it. So in that case, you might go more towards the limited inventory where you're like, I don't want my brand associated with this crap. Expanded inventory means that it could show on just about anything. So you just want to be really careful with that. I typically go with standard inventory. I have, it's a repeated strong profanity. I think there's probably a couple of Creative Juice episodes that would qualify for that because I have the mouth of a sailor. So, I'm like, okay, well, when I think of, or like the Joe Rogan podcast, right? Whereas Howard Stern might be more in the expanded inventory, right? So just kind of think about the things that you listen to and, make some deductions from that. So obviously, we've got these excluded types. So if you want to, make sure that your stuff is not included on live streaming videos, right? Live streaming videos, if you wanted to exclude those, that could be because, people are engaging on a live stream. They're, definitely there more specifically on purpose, probably, right? They're there because they know an event is happening. So it definitely increases the likelihood of it getting skipped. But, I think that generally I just leave these the way it is. Same is true for embedded YouTube videos. That just means if someone has their video embedded on a YouTube or has the YouTube embedded on a website, if it's eligible for advertising, it could show there. So some people may want to disclude those. I don't think there's a reason for that. And then again, we've got even more content labels. So this drills down even further than the general inventory if you want to get really granular with it. And that's all that is. Additional settings, I usually just leave these until you get into more advanced stuff and you're doing, display network retargeting and things like that. I don't think that's really useful for us to cover today, so I'm going to skip that. All right, so this is where you would set the ad group. Now, the ad group is very similar to your ad set, right? So you're going to want to put something in here that is an appropriate name for the types of people or the types of places that this is going to show. Really, if you think about the way that you set up an ad set in Facebook, you've got all your audience parameters, and then you have your placements, and those are all within the ad set. So this is the same thing. Your audience and your placements are all in the same place. So I'm going to go ahead and put cool rock people. I don't know. Let's say I'm putting an age on it, even though I usually don't. 18 to 45. There we go. So note here that you can skip the ad group and ad creation if you want to get the shell of your campaign built but not continue. So that's kind of a nice little thing. You can come back in and make those changes later if you want. All right, so demographics. You guys know what these mean. I don't need to tell you. Obviously, we've got these unknowns, right? Which these are generally people who just have privacy settings on, and YouTube doesn't have the data. I wouldn't recommend unticking those. I know it can be tempting to have a very specific definition of who the people are, but there are a lot of people who don't make their age, gender, marital status, etc. known to the Google network. So I wouldn't exclude those, but if you like, you can. I also do not filter for household income, and I'm almost... every time I look at this, I'm like, come on, Google. There's going to be a temptation to like, oh, I don't want those people. I only want the top 50% of household income. This is not relevant. If you're not selling something that, if you were selling like, a Tesla or a high model Maserati or something like that, potentially, or like fine art or fine jewelry, something that maybe this would be relevant, but this is definitely not relevant unless you're doing something like that. So just don't worry about that. Okay, leave that alone. So, all right. So here's your audiences. Now, there's a couple of things that you can do in this whole section, and it's interesting. There are, who they are, right? So that is parental status, so if you only want to reach parents, if you only want to reach people with a college education, if you want to reach people who own a home, right? A lot of these things aren't really going to be relevant for musicians or creatives. So I don't typically go in there, but something you could do. If you are selling, if you have some kind of apparel that you're launching in your store for your music, and this is like the kids line or the baby line, then you could go ahead and use the parental status there. Typically what you're going to be using is going to be here, right? Which are these affinity audiences. Now, as Jack and I covered in that Creative Juice episode, these are very broad. You are not using artist targeting the way that you do on Facebook, which, you've probably noticed that there have been fewer and fewer artists available for targeting as you're running through your fan finder exercises and figuring out what audiences work best for you. More and more artists have been falling off the ability to target. And that is essentially because Facebook is sick of people trying to be too particular about their audiences. Like, trust us, the machine gets it. It'll know, So yeah, slowly that's been filtering out to more broad, whereas Google has just always been there. They've always been like, we know all, trust us, and go general. So typically, a lot of people are going to be going into media and entertainment and into music. Now, obviously, music lovers generally is probably not a very strong audience, especially if you're talking about musical content. So if you press that arrow, you can get into, more of these things. So what's cool is that if you hover over them, as you can see, there's this little pop-up that comes up, right? And it kind of tells you some associations, right? Which can be helpful when you're kind of trying to figure out like, okay, if I wanted to add multiple audiences in here, what are some others that are closely correlated? So the machine is basically looking at audiences that do similarly, right, or respond to similar targets, and allows those to be put in here for you to kind of riff off of. So that can be helpful. So for me, for example, I'd be going to indie and alternative rock fans. So when I zoom over that, it says there are potentially 10 billion to 1 trillion weekly impressions. There is no way that I'm going to be spending enough budget for that to happen, but that's a pretty good indicator that this is a large enough audience for the machine to do its job. So I'm going to go ahead and tick that. And then maybe I'll also do rock fans, right? Which you can see even in rock fans, top related audiences is indie and alternative rock. So if you think about it in the context of a Facebook business manager, and keep in mind, I keep mentioning that correlation because I know that if you've been with us for more than a few days, you've spent a ton of time in Facebook business manager. So I just want to help create that connection when we're talking about conceptual execution of this. So if you were to go into an ad set and build an ad set of rock fans, and then you also had alternative rock fans, chances are the alternative rock fans are completely housed within rock fans, right? So, you including both of these may not actually do anything, but why not just have it ticked just for fun? All right. So again, you can use other lifestyle things if you want, right? You can go through here and kind of take a look and see, if there are other habits or interests that you think would be beneficial to you. But typically that's how we do these large music things. Here again, you can look at in-market audiences, which is, people who are purchasing certain things, right? So keep in mind, though, that when you are using these different audiences, you're just compiling them all together, right? This is not like in Facebook where you have the interest and then you narrow by this other interest. This is just taking anybody who's eligible and lumping them into one giant audience. So that's one thing, if I wanted rock fans and then filtered by people with apparel and accessories because I'm selling apparel, that wouldn't work here, if that makes sense. So you've got your in-market audiences, and this is essentially people who are behaving, either making purchases or searching, shopping for these items. So that's what that is. And then there's life events, which Facebook has this as well. Did they get married? Did they get engaged? Did they graduate college? Did they buy a home? Things like that. All right. So this is going to say nothing right now because this is a new account. And typically, so what this is how they've interacted with your business. So this is good because and when we go through like ones and zeros, for example, I say, even if your website is doing nothing, even if it's just a landing page right now, get the Google Analytics code on there. And the reason why is that those are what populate here. So remarketing, which is essentially what Google calls retargeting. What Facebook calls retargeting, Google is remarketing. It's the same difference. You're hitting back with the people who have already done something once. So when you integrate different tools into this, it gets even more complex. So there could be people, you can set up audiences in Google Analytics, which we're not going to get into today, that are, people who have been to certain pages on your site. You can include all of your website traffic. You could include people who have landed on your YouTube channel, right? These are all audiences that you can build in Google Analytics and then share it to your AdWords account. Now, the really cool thing is that is very Googleable because this is a Google function. So if you decide that you want to do that, you can Google it very easily. Google has a ton of support docs. It can be a little bit difficult to navigate until you get familiar with the tools, but there's a ton of like tutorials and things out there, even internally within Google, that can help you navigate some of that. You can also upload custom audiences, right? I don't have any here, but there are custom audiences. There are email. You can get your email audience in there, just the way you do with Facebook, right? Uploading manual customer lists, mailing lists, things like that. So those are the things that you can put in here. Now keep in mind, if you're using any of these remarketing or custom audiences, that's a very stark difference from, for example, what we've selected here with music lovers, right? There's this giant audience, and you're like, oh, and here's mine. So if you lump those together, chances are the people who are on your remarketing, if you combine them with that big an audience, it's not going to get to them, right? So you definitely want to keep your particular remarketing audiences and your custom audiences separated, right? You want them to have their own campaigns, their own ad sets. So, all right. Now, obviously we've got keywords. So let's say that one comparison I get all the time is that I sound like any female fronted rock band, right? So if I wanted to put in here like the Pretty Reckless, although that is kind of a general term, so that actually might not be something good, but this is a free form flow, right? So you could put all kinds of things in here. So I could put female rock singer, right? Female bass player, stuff like that. So another thing that you can do is put in a related website here. So let's say I'll find the Pretty Reckless website. deathbyrockandroll.com. Man, I didn't know that's awesome. I'm kind of really into that. Okay. So if I put that in, you can see, oh, look, there's all these things. Bam, 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 right? I can put all of those things in. I love that Queen is a really high level SEO item for them. So anyway, that's another thing that you can do, right? Or if I wanted to put in like alternative press, right? That would be something that would be a media outlet that I've appeared in before and is kind of my crowd. So if I put that in and press enter, obviously you're going to want to be discriminatory here, because magazine is not something that I want people to search, right? So if I look through here, it's all magazine, all magazine. Yeah, so, this is not actually a good fit, right? Maybe alternative, but alternative by itself, not so much. Alternative press, sure, But so sometimes this is great. This brings in great keyword ideas, and sometimes it does not. So just know that as you go in, just because Google is giving you an idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. But this is kind of cool because you can, put in things when people are searching in Google or searching in YouTube, right? This is very similar to the tag topics that you're probably used to putting on your YouTube video. If someone's searching for female bass player, right, and I put that interest tag on my video, it makes it eligible for search. In the same way, it'll do it here, but it'll prioritize it over organic results in many cases. So that's one cool thing that you can do here that you can't do so much on Facebook. So for topics, it's kind of the same thing, right? For example, if I search rock music, it starts to get a little bit different, right? Because we're not just viewing interests at this point, we're viewing actual topics. So, oh look, CD and audio shopping, that's great. If I go down to rock music, you can drill down a little bit further than some of the audiences, right? But what this is doing is it's not identifying people, it's identifying content. So this is actually saying, okay, if someone is viewing a video that would be categorized as punk, we will put it here, right? It's not, oh, we know of someone who likes punk music, we're going to show them this ad. That is, we don't care who this person is, they're viewing something about punk music, and so now we're going to put the ad there. Does that make sense? I know you're all saying, yes, it makes so much sense. Right. So anyway, sorry guys, the scroll is out of control here. So that is the topics. And I think that that's actually something that is very interesting. over Facebook, right? Because Facebook, you're basically saying, look, I want people like this, but it doesn't say I want my stuff placed here, right? And that might be something that makes more sense for you. Different results can come out of these two different objectives. And I've had very interesting results, especially when it comes to, concerts and music festivals, right? On Facebook, you essentially have to put that, in the interest targeting, interested in live events. Well, that's very different from showing it on content that has to do with live events, right? So that is something that is a little different about the two, and that I think is actually a nice thing about Google Ads, and I like using that. All right. Here's the deal with placements. This is the forewarning about placements. Placements are essentially drilling down even further than topics, right? Topics allow us to kind of choose the general summation of, what category this content would fit into. Placements are like, I want it on this channel, right? So if someone hated Indiepreneurs Guts and they wanted to blast some video about how much they hate Indiepreneur, they could choose our channel and run that ad to our channel, right? I mean, I would say maybe go get a life, but they could, right? So now it can be good and bad. So you might be thinking like, oh, cool, I sound just like Billie Eilish and I want my video on her channel. The issue is that Billie Eilish doesn't actually, let's actually look. Let me not even summate, right? If I go to YouTube and I look for Billie Eilish, obviously it's going to pop up her channel. Oh, she has 36 million subscribers. That sounds like a great placement, right? So let's look at how often, though, she actually uploads. All right, so she uploaded, it looks like she uploads a couple videos. It kind of varies, right? Like the AMAs were last week, so obviously that's more recent. And she probably put this video out in kind of the promo cycle of the AMAs. And she's got a couple other live things here. But then you can see here, like there's 2 from 7 months ago. There's a few from 9 months ago. And Billie is probably one of the more, I would say, progressive of those who, post content on YouTube. So what if I did this? What if I went to, Under Oath, right? Just as an example. Oh, 5 years ago. That's their highest one. So let's go to their, obviously they have a much smaller subscriber base, right? But this is what you see with a lot of artists, especially bigger ones that have like huge high budget videos. A lot of musicians have not caught on the wave of publishing content regularly on YouTube, right? They feel like they have to put, very specific things on YouTube. So anyway, I'm going into all of this to show essentially if you only show your ad on this channel because you really want fans of Under Oath to see it, it's going to cost you a lot of money because they're not producing enough content with enough viewers to even get close to your interest-based targeting. And there are different schools of thought on this, but if I just add enough YouTube channels, if I add enough websites, right? So let's say I actually want to be on alternative press, right? And I search that. Alternative press. And it may or may not come up. Okay. Maybe it's under alt press. Yeah. That's a difficult one to find. Okay. And I'm even typing it in exactly. So you can see that this isn't always a super great thing to do. So let's say I just go here and I search, I'll try Paramore this time, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to pull in different channels, different videos, different websites, right? And these are all individual placements. So let's go to websites, and there's a whole bunch of sites that don't, and none of them are paramore.com. Interesting. So Rock Sound TV, right? all music. So let's say that I just add like a zillion in here, right? Because I'm just like, this is what I want. There's a point where, okay, and all these YouTube, I want to be on all these videos, right? They have millions of views. And so now I've got this, extreme list. And I know that some people will go through and actually add just hundreds of outlets and blogs and websites and channels and videos. And in the end, they would all fall into, you're not ever going to get enough people through these placements to get even close to what you can with interest targeting, and probably not enough for your cost to be reasonable. So, but you can do this, obviously there are certain apps, right? This is going to populate with whatever, but if you look at there's actually Google placements in, in gaming apps, right? Or I'm sure you have several apps on your phone that will show a lot of advertising. It does tend to populate more on the Android side of the house than on iOS. If you're an Apple user, more of the app ads tend to go over there, but you can pick whatever you want. So yeah, the placements can be cool, right? Especially for short-term stuff, but just know that you will end up paying more because you cannot hit the same audience level and choice that Google has if you go with larger topics and especially larger interests. So I hope that helps understand there. All right, so here we are to the CPM, which I told you we were going to be talking about. Now, some of you are probably pretty familiar with CPM. That's something that we, go over in Fan Finder and, we talk about in the group a lot. But if you're not familiar, CPM is a cost per 1,000, which it says right there, cost per 1,000 impressions. So that doesn't mean that you're getting 1,000 results. It means it hit 2,000 eyeballs, 1,000 people in their eyeballs. So essentially, you're saying, okay, what is my target CPM? Now, as I was saying, it can be good if you've run a Fan Finder before to go see what that looks like, right? So let me, I'll pull up a window and kind of show you an example of how you would find this in your business manager. And really what this helps you do is kind of figure out, what do I normally run, right? What does it normally cost me? And it does sometimes take a little bit more money on Google to get the same results. But if you have that target CPM set in there, Google will find the people you're willing to pay for instead of just, running up your bill with the most expensive people and getting fewer impressions. So you're kind of telling Google, like, look, this is my tolerance. This is my spend tolerance. And if you spend more than that to get reasonable results, I'm going to shut it off. And that's kind of, what that's gauging there. So let me just go here. This is not a music account. So if I want to look at, and this is a very, low spend business account. So best way, obviously, performance is going to be your default, right? And so that's not necessarily going to show you what you want to see when it comes to CPM. So I always forget the best way, but delivery is a way that you can view it. And essentially we're looking at like, okay, the frequency, cost per 1,000 reached, and cost per 1,000 impressions. So the cost per 1,000 impressions is what we're looking here. Obviously 1,000 people reached is just not the same, right? Because impressions is the number of times it was seen. People that it was reached are unique users. So if one person saw it 3 times, that's one person reached, but 3 impressions. So you're going to want to go cost per 1,000 impressions. So the easiest way to do that is to get from delivery and then see that here. So what you may want to do is, if you've got a Fan Finder with multiple ad sets, right? So let's say I went to the ad sets on this one. Obviously, they only have these 2, but if you've got multiples, go ahead, open it way up, set it to lifetime, or set it to, if you're wanting to run for one particular period of time, you could, but I'd recommend setting it for as many days as you can, just so that you're getting a more summated version and it's not altering your guess too much. And, set for cost per impressions and scroll all the way to the bottom of those and get your average here. That's what I would recommend. So it says 685. Tight. I'm gonna put that right here. Now, like I said, your CPM I've seen CPM as low as, on warm audiences, I've seen them low. I've seen cold traffic anywhere from $4 to $22. There's a huge range, and don't necessarily feel that that's indicative of your skills as an advertiser. It's more about the competition within your audience. How many people who are advertising are vying for the eyeballs that you are? The more competitive it is, the more that you're paying for CPM. Because when you have a bid process like this, the bidding system is saying, all right, who's going to bid the highest? How can we make the most money to get the eyeballs up to this certain bid, right? So that's essentially what that means if you weren't familiar. So obviously you've got your target CPM bid, and then you can, I always ignore this adjustment, but if you're interested, you can go ahead and dig deep into that. All right, so let's get into ads, right? This is the part we all love. So what's interesting about YouTube ads is that you could put any video in here. Crazy, right? So let's say that I want to advertise for Under Oath. I'm just a giver and I want to help them advertise. So I'm going to copy that link and I can post it in here, and there it is. It doesn't even have to be my video. Isn't that bonkers? Now, the reason why I bring that up is because it's not my favorite thing, but there are indies who are like, they'll either pay someone or make a deal with someone for placement on somebody else's channel, right? They have their own YouTube video, and then there's another channel that has millions of subscribers that posts all the time. That's like, we want to put your video on our channel. Well, the problem with that is that it's a little bit more difficult for someone to then they have to click somewhere to be on your profile and be viewing your content, and for you to be able to monetize and have that watch time and all of that stuff, right? But there's an advantage there in that there are, you are essentially kind of solidifying that partnership, right? So if you are working with someone and you're like, I really want this to be a good business relationship, I want them to see that there's good results, like you could advertise their video. So largely you're going to want this to be your own video. But that is basically just a kind of to me, it's still kind of a strange loophole, but it's fine. We'll do it. So anyway, you'll want to put your video in here. Now you can see here, because of the length of the video, which is 534, because of the length of the video, it's only eligible for skippable in-stream, right? Non-skippable in-stream, if it was 15 seconds, I could make it a non-skippable in-stream so that it would just show. And I think it's 15 seconds. I want to make sure that hasn't changed. I don't want to lie to you. Oh, it's giving me all that song and dance. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's 15 seconds. I know on Facebook it's 15. I haven't run one of them in a while. So anyway, you can see that there's all these other ads that we didn't choose or couldn't choose when we were first setting it up because it's not in our objective and it's not compatible with our video style. So Facebook does the exact same thing. It says your video is not eligible for this placement. It's like, good to go. So here's the thing about YouTube ads. Any Google ad, you have to have a link. You cannot do like we recommend for fan finders on Facebook. You can't make it with no call to action. It's not allowed. And that bums us out because, again, right, as I was saying at the top of this session, it looks like an ad. People know it's an ad. There's a button on it. You have to have sales copy. Like, it's an ad. You're not going to fool them. So that said, you should make it something, good. There are some weird things about running Google ads with what they allow for their call to action or whatever, but you have to have this URL. So let's say, I'm just going to put my site in there. That's my internal hold music, in case you were interested. Okay, so let's say that I want to send them to, I don't know, some site, right? Now, it'll automatically display that URL, but let's say that I don't want it to show that. Same thing as in Facebook, right? We can be like, oh, I just want it to say CorrinCampbell.com. I don't want it to have all that business in there, right? So that's all that is. And then you can have your call to action, right? Here's the button. But the thing is, even without the button, it still shows that it's an ad right there, right? And you still have to have a link attached to it. So now, if you wanted to be more, in theory, it's more under the radar, I guess, to not have a button, but it's still this, So at that point, it's like, well, I might as well have a button, right? You can put your call to action headline in here, same way as Facebook, but it's going to look like an ad even without a button. So just making that super clear. Can you tell it's a thing? It's a thing for me. All right, same thing here. So on the banner, you can, which again is only on desktop, which I can show you here, right? This is again an example where, say we take that button off. It still says the URL here, right? But is it less obvious? I mean, not really, because it still says skip ad, right? So anyway, you can auto-generate or you can upload an image like, a lot of YouTubers do. Obviously, their thumbnail is something that isn't ever anything that actually happens in the video. You can do that there. Keep in mind these dimensions and file sizes. Google is extremely stringent on the sizes of the images that you can use, and it's probably because they have billions of them uploaded. So I'd recommend, if you haven't already invested in a program that helps you downsize images to make them web friendly, just make sure to do that, because otherwise every time you go to start an ad, you'll be like, crap, I don't have it in that format. So, all right, so I'm just going to click create campaign. All right, I have to enter an end date. My bee. So obviously it'll tell you, your budget is this per day. Oh, I skipped this. You can set it to daily. So, why not spend $500 a day? Sure. Now the thing is, over here, it gives you kind of an estimate, right? Available impressions. So this is based on who you have in that target audience, right? So it's your placements and your countries and the interests and all of those things combined. How many impressions does Google think you could get if you spent all the money you needed to? And there's about 370,000, excuse me. So that's not great, right? I mean, it is, but because it's, per week, I suppose, but that's not, I don't know how much I would love that. And that is probably mostly impacted. There's the audience size and then there's the CPM, right? So let's look at that real quick. If I go down here to my target CPM bid, right? And I change it from $6.85, which is relatively low, to, let's say I put $12. You can see that this went up, right? Let's go back. Our bottom is 10K. And here's the thing. It's always going to have this high number. It's not going to do that, right? You have to look at this bottom number and know what kind of range you're looking at. So if it's 685, okay, I could get as low as 10,000 impressions, which is pretty low, right? Especially considering that I'm talking about spending $500 a day, right? So let's take it down to something that's more indie level, $10 a day. And you can see the budget spend also went 44 to 100. I'm just going to dance around in here a little bit because I just want you guys to see how these different choices impact your results. Because Facebook doesn't really give you as much to tinker with. Facebook's like, trust us, we gotcha. And you set your daily budget, and most of us are not going to be doing CPM target from there, right? This is how much I want to pay per 1,000 impressions. Facebook just kind of calculates that for us, and we have to do some like manual forcing in order to even have that input. So Facebook has kind of overridden the default of us setting it. So it's also funny. I'm going to actually decompress all of these because they have them so far apart, but they are really, they're really very, they impact each other a good deal. All right. So CPM of 685, right? My budget, sorry, I'm scrolling around, guys, because I got lost. Okay. So I have it set for $10 a day. And in theory, right, if I'm spending $10 a day and my CPM is 685, that's under 2,000, right? Under 2,000 if my target bid is met completely. That's why it's saying here the budget spend is 44 to 100% of my daily budget. If I put it back to 500, and if you have $500 a day, call me. But so you can see my budget spend is anywhere from 0 to 42. That means that my budget is way exceeding what the actual inventory, how many people Google thinks they could actually show this to, even if they're doing it at the very best that they can, right? At that CPM. So these things impact each other. Your CPM is going to matter less. Your budget is going to basically have a greater impact on that. So let's say, again, $12 for CPM, right? And then if I go up here, it says budget spend unavailable. Well, that's not good. What if I take this down to $15 a day? Yeah. So you can see that these things kind of jump around. Now, if I put $12, look, the average opened way up. So these are the kind of things that you want to play around with, right? CPM, and again, this is estimated performance. So once it actually goes live, it's going to depend most on your creative, right? Your targeting and your creative, just like any advertising in the world anywhere, right? But these are kind of interesting things to play around because you can do a lot of reverse math to figure out impressions, right? Now, I'm going to check out the comments. I think I saw a couple of smart questions. And I don't want to leave those people behind. So let me take a look-see. Most of you are listening intently. I love that. Thank you so much. All right. So on YouTube, DC Scott says, does this YouTube ad always appear as a pre-roll? Not necessarily, but yes. I know there are mid-stream ads, but and they have been making some changes recently, but to my understanding, as of the last time I looked, the in streams are not skippable. So, if it is a skippable in stream ad, it would need to be pre-roll. There's also, I can't remember if the outstream. Sorry, I'm going to check my smart because I don't want to give you guys bad information. Yeah, pretty sure it's only pre-roll. So hopefully that helps you on that one. All right. So, we are at an hour, but if you do have questions, I would love to hear them. Again, this is just a real top level overview. And this is really because, I wanted to make sure that you at least understood the components of YouTube ads. In my opinion, the most popular segment of Google ads is retargeting, remarketing, right? And so this is going to have a lot to do with your website traffic. And then you're tying in Google Analytics to Google AdWords. If you're running a store, you need Google Merchant Center to be communicating to Google AdWords. So that's all a very complex system. But that none of that is required to run YouTube ads. So we wanted to make sure that we came and kind of showed you what those things are, showed you what the options are, and what each of those things mean, so that if you do want to run YouTube ads, now you kind of have an easy go-to. It's really simple, and it doesn't even require a full training, right? So, okay, I'm checking. Elvin says, you mentioned earlier making YouTube content should be part of a musician's strategy, which I do. Do you have any advice to share about YouTube content for musicians and what can work for us? I find it really difficult to create content that is easy enough to make that I can be consistent and bring views versus keeping the music you make the center of the brand. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, depending on your willingness to play acoustically, right? There's also, again, if you're running ads on YouTube, largely, in my opinion, successful ads are ads. They essentially what we call on Facebook dark posts, right? These are videos that are unlisted. They are not meant to be seen, They're not meant to be something that your subscriber could go to your YouTube channel and be alerted about and watch. Ads on YouTube, in my opinion, need to be very direct ad built content. This should be things that you are making specifically for that purpose. Whereas on Facebook, this is social content. It's native. It's happening, throughout the platform. It doesn't have to appear like an ad to be successful. So that said, as far as general content on YouTube, I say, if you're willing to perform live, if you're willing to have chats, go live. Watch parties can be really fun for when you're putting up a new song. You can be like, I'll be in here with the live chat with you, right? You can do premieres and make sure that you are live and present for the chat for that premiere. So yeah, I mean, I think that the other cool thing about YouTube is that, on Facebook, it's like a visualizer kind of sucks, right? Because of how people consume content on Facebook. On YouTube, a visualizer can work. People are used to seeing visualizers and lyric videos and engaging with those. And that isn't something that's weird or something that isn't typically what's done on YouTube. Whereas on Facebook, it's, musicians post them, but people don't engage with them the same way. Facebook is more, for lack of a better word, face to face, right? They want to see people. They want to see faces, and they want to feel a connection through Facebook. On YouTube, it's very much like a movie theater. You're not expecting the actors to jump off the screen and participate with you, right? So I think it's important to think of Facebook more as social speaking and YouTube as content presentation. And if you kind of separate that line, then you can think about, okay, what can I put on YouTube that makes sense? And there's just so much more that you can do with YouTube that wouldn't necessarily be successful on Facebook as far as your organic content and your publishing. So I would say put all kinds of things on there. Live streaming, live performances, just regular chats, right? You could make short videos of the process of anything, whether it's you making merch or a behind the scenes thing. If you're recording music or any of the process of being an artist, right? All of that stuff is interesting, and you can cut that up into webisodes and make it a series of 5 and, release them over a few days or over a couple of weeks, whatever. I think that's the kind of stuff that people are used to experiencing on YouTube, especially web series type stuff. Anything that you can be like, all right, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to document this thing, or I'm going to create media around this thing, or I'm going to create create a concert, split that content up into 5 pieces, and then schedule them to come out regularly. I think that's something that musicians can do. And then you're also not publishing a 15-minute video that only gives you that one video to post. Cut it up into 5 for 3 minutes each and, put it out like that. So that's my 2 cents there. So DC Scott said, so after YouTube ad runs, does YouTube tell us about the people who saw the ad in a way that can help me target those people? Yeah, and actually, I'll touch on that real fast. We can take a look at a dashboard if you like. Let me log into a different account so that because obviously that dummy account does not have anything in it. All right, so let me, gotta share that screen, All right, so, just so you know, if you run, no, go away, these notifications. All right, if you run a campaign at a low budget, so I've run video view campaigns for $1 a day for like, I don't know, a year, a long time. Actually, it might have only been like 6 months. Let's look. All time. All right. So yeah, and you can see in here these little spikes of things is when I was running tests, because I love you guys and I test things for you with my own money. You know, I tried a free plus shipping and handling thing for a while. I tried a lot of different things. I tried Shopify retargeting. There's a lot of different things that I did in Google Ads to do some tests, and also to record some content for a Google Ads training later on down the line that is not YouTube focused. But you can see that all throughout here, there's been this little line, right? And so I've been running that since February of 2020, because this is, I started a fresh account because my old account was messy. So this video view campaign is what I've been running. So let me go ahead and click through there. So you see results that are, you know, very similar to what you can see in Facebook, right? This one is actually set by CPV, which again is just another objective that you can set in your campaigns as your when you select the different objectives, right? So yeah, you can see my cost per view is about a penny, which is more than it costs on Facebook, but it's fine enough. My average CPM is about $7.96, so that wasn't a bad guess. And if you want to go and look at different things, right? This is where you kind of separate that out. So, but this is the thing. Then this is what I am always talking about. Look, I ran $1 a day, right? It's cost me $500 over that period of time or whatever it was. And I earned 1 to 20 subscribers. Yeah. So it's just something to consider, you know? So navigating this dashboard is a little different. Like, again, if I go to overview, right, I've got all campaigns. You can see that it kind of pops in with all this information, right? Cute little charts. Those are always great. But here you would go to add groups to see your ad sets, right? And ads and extensions are your actual ads, and they're not housed within the campaign the way that it is in Facebook, right? So in Facebook, it's like campaign, and then in that campaign, ad sets, and then in that ad set, ads, right? It's just a full-on list. So that's one thing to consider. So when I name my ads, I name them essentially the campaign that they're in, and then kind of an acronym to let me know, you know, what those different things are. This one has been the most successful. It's earned me 66 views after spending $334. So again, Jack and I touch a lot on this in the podcast episode, so please go back and listen to Creative Juice from, you know, a couple weeks ago. But earned views means that somebody saw this ad, clicked through. The link that I have on mine is just to my YouTube channel. They landed on my YouTube channel and they watched something else. That's an earned view. So that could be 6 people clicking through and watching 11 videos. It could be 1 person clicking through and watching 66 videos, or it could be 66 people who went through and watched 1 video, right? So there are some more details there, but you can see the view rate, right, is at about 57%. You are going to see this be very different from Facebook in that the view rates are going to be higher typically than, obviously you see a pretty mega drop off, right? When you're looking at Facebook ads, there's a little less of a, I guess, you can't just swipe away from the video. You have to actually click, right? So you will see higher view rates. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better. So it's just a different way of evaluating the stats. So again, going back to ad groups, right? We've got our columns here. We can look at our conversions. And then there's obviously custom where you can set up all kinds of different things. You can go into your audiences here and you can see, which audience is performing better. See, I've got rock music and Indian alt fans, right? There's not going to be a lot of meaningful data for mine because obviously running at $1 a day essentially doesn't give the budget enough CPM to work with, right? It's really low. And that's why it's telling me you have a limited budget. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to spend any more than that. So you can also go to placements, right? Where ads showed, for example. And if I do it by impressions, high to low, I don't know what these are, but the World Star Hip Hop has been an excellent source of views for me. I guess Ed Sheeran has also been. I haven't even looked at these. Guys, I literally care about this so little of all the things that I've run in Google. But, you can see these are weird places. I never would have chosen this as a placement, right? But they're doing well. Look at the view rates here. We've got, people viewing for 80-90%. And that's on Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran is not something I would have ever targeted. So this is why I recommend not getting granular in the placements, because chances are the machine knows more than you. In fact, I know it does. So don't, just trust the machine to find what it needs to find to get to the people that it needs to get to. So anyway, yeah, that's where you can find more about these people. That's where you can look up how much they've watched. You can also do this in your Google Analytics. If you have your Google Analytics connected to your YouTube channel, you can view information there. When you get into audiences, and I'm not going to dig into custom audiences for this one. Maybe we can slot that for a future Google ad training, or even for another live stream. But when you start getting into building those custom audiences, you're integrating Google Analytics into Google Ads, and you can basically, target people who have been on a certain number of, certain number of pages, or who are on your mailing list. And eventually, Google will unlock similar to audiences, which are essentially like Facebook's lookalike audiences, but Google will make them for you when they deem that you are ready. You can't make them on demand, and they are, it's a little bit complex. So I don't want to get too much into that, but in those, you can also add video view groups. So that's where you would address that, and I hope that we can actually reach that at some point soon. Okay, so I'm going to get to the last of the questions, and then we're going to be shutting down for the day so everyone can go get into food coma prep. Okay, hi, my name is Nelson. You mentioned splitting a 15-minute video into multiple videos that are shorter and thus have more content. There are others that say long-form videos perform better. Have you noticed a difference in the performance of videos that are short from 3 to 5 minutes versus long-form 7 to 5? And you guys are talking without me, which is awesome. Yeah, the biggest difference is watch time. Okay, so one thing I'll say is that there are principles that apply to YouTube. When it's funny how things filter down, right? I know a couple people who are large YouTubers, millions of subscribers, and there are, best practices for channels like them that are monetizing and have a completely different objective from people like me who have probably less than 1,000 I've never put money or much into YouTube. And I don't publish videos very often. So don't look at mine. I'm not an example. You want to be not me. But there are very different ways that these things apply and don't apply, right? And that's where the information gets, I think, convoluted, is because it depends, right? I think when you are more starting out, it's easier for people to consume shorter pieces, right? And come back multiple times, and you can start really generating enough interest for them to repeatedly come back to you, right? Where they're like, oh, this is going to be happening. And I don't mean in a way that's like, I publish a video every Wednesday. Like, I don't mean that way. I just mean that people get used to coming to your YouTube channel and seeing something new. I think as you get, more mid-size, then you start worrying about watch time, because you want that monetization to open up, right? And there's, whether you are searchable or not, right? Compared to other things that people are searching for. But largely, I think that if you are concerned about YouTube being a content publisher for you to provide things to your fans more than anything, then those shorter videos, like whatever you can do, cut up those larger videos and put out more smaller ones. Because if you only do one long video once every 6 weeks, people aren't going to come back. They're not going to stay tuned. You know what I'm saying? So now if you have the capability to do 15-minute videos every week, have at it, but I'm more concerned about, musicians wanting to get people used to seeing content from them. Make sure that your fans have a consistent reason to return if YouTube is a platform that you're interested in pursuing. I'm not, but many people are, and so I wouldn't discount, having a reason for people to come back to your channel repeatedly. So that's my thought there. All right. Last couple questions. You guys are having a whole discussion that completely says exactly what I just said. So you guys are great. Okay. And I need to check Facebook as well. YouTube kids are cranking on over there. David says, could you do a ground report overview on the Google retargeting strategies that you've spoken of? Ooh, or when the Google Ads training scheduled. Okay, so here's the deal, David. I was putting together Google Ads, and when we surveyed the group, everyone wanted YouTube training. And so it's, as I was saying, YouTube training, like even when we start talking about retargeting audiences from YouTube ads, you have to have an entire Google infrastructure behind that, because you have to have your analytics, you have to have your audiences set, and if you're running to any kind of product or store, which in theory is what you'd want to be doing, you have to have Google Merchant Center. So it became, there's this entire network of things that needs to happen that kind of keeps us from digging into, many more, many more objectives. So when we asked everybody what they wanted, they said YouTube ads, and YouTube ads on their own as this just like higher level concept doesn't require full training. What does require full training is all of Google ads, which is giant. And that wasn't something that people were as interested in as much as just like understanding how YouTube ads work. So that's why we transitioned to doing a YouTube ground report today. Google Ads training is still something I would love to do. I've got an outline for it, but because of the community feedback, we are putting more of our resources into restructuring Ultimate Album Launch, restructuring the free plus shipping and handling, and some other trainings are getting prioritized in front of Google Ads because it is simply a monster, a total beast. But since you're expressing it, I will make sure to communicate that to the rest of my peeps, so they don't, so we don't throw it away. All right, that is it for today, guys. I hope that gives you, I know it seems like we didn't get into much, but there isn't that much to get into with YouTube ads, really. If you want to get deep into Google ads, we will still be looking at doing a training for that in the future at some point. But Google ads themselves have a YouTube channel that has a lot of really great information that, you know, I couldn't teach you any differently or wouldn't, you know, there wouldn't be anything different about it because it's music. And we try to not just regurgitate things that are easily followed online. If you can Google it and have one reliable source, we're probably just going to let you do that, right? The problem is that when there isn't official information from the platform itself with music in mind, right? So, but Google Ads, YouTube, they have a really great, YouTube channel with lots of tutorials, and Google Ads themselves also have like basics trainings, and that would not change in a musical context. So if you're wanting to get ahead of where I was planning a Google Ads training, you can do that. So, all right, cool. So I want to thank you guys for your time. That's all we have for today. I'm really just checking on the chat to make sure I'm not like leaving anyone high and dry. Hopefully everyone is good. Run some YouTube ads if you want, or don't. But in any case, now you know what kind of mess you can get yourself in. One last word of warning. When you first open a Google Ads account, they will not bill you until you hit, I think it's like $500 or something like that. So it does not ask you when to shut things off, right? And it won't bill you as frequently as Facebook does by default. So make sure you go into your account settings and fix that, because the last thing you want to do is run something and not realize that you've got a $700 bill at the end of the month because you didn't set that. So I just know a lot of people who have gotten into trouble with that, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. All right, guys, have a wonderful Thanksgiving-ish, whatever you celebrate, day, tomorrow, weekend. I hope you've prepped your Black Friday and Cyber Monday. If not, might as well start planning for next year. And there's a great video that we just put out on Full Stack Creative that can help you with that. So have a wonderful day, guys, and thanks so much for hanging out with me. See you later.